So the Speedmaster is probably one of the most respected watches by the community in terms of broad appeal. You know, whenever you speak to someone, they'll always say you need to have a Speedy in your collection at some point. And while I've reviewed the Speedmaster and it's definitely a really cool watch, I wanted to find out a little bit more of what makes it so special, because there are plenty of great watches out there, but very few that have the same sort of respect that the Speedy gets. So I reached out to Constantine from Mr. B, who's owned the Speedmaster for nearly 8 years, and he's been collecting for even longer than that, to get a bit of perspective on what makes the Speedmaster so special. Now, a big thanks to Mr. B for participating in this. You can find links to his channel and Instagram in the description below, as well as timestamps for the conversation, because as you know, when I have these watch conversations, we tend to ramble a little bit. So if you want to jump around, you'll find links in the description below. But without further ado, let's find out what makes the Speedmaster so special. Mr. B, what's up?
Thanks for having me, actually.
A pleasure, a pleasure. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Obviously, been following your channel for quite some time. So yeah, no, it's great to have you on. Good seeing the new video that you just put up about the Oris movement. What do you think of the new Aquis?
Well, it's good question, actually. I was happy that they made the next step, because a lot of guys were complaining about that Oris is using cylinder movements on the Oris line or on the Aquis line. And I think it's a step into the right direction. They did some upgrades also of the bracelet. So you have an easier exchangeable bracelet to the strap right now. Sapphire crystal case back is also fine, that you can see the new movement, and the movement itself, the 400 Calibre 400, it offers a lot. Huh? Five days power reserve, 10 years of warranty. It's pretty good. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's really good. I mean, like, obviously the new model, physically, you don't see too many changes. I mean, obviously they have the 5 days on the front, you have the nice display case back, seeing the new movement, and you have the quick release straps. But I think the movement is obviously the star. And at what, I think it's about 3,000 US thereabouts in price for 5 days power reserve. You know, there's someone in Geneva in the Tudor office saying, shit, what do we do now?
Well, Tudor is a daughter of Rolex, so they do have that advantage.
I don't think they'll be worried necessarily yet, but more than anything, it just brings more competition into that segment. I'd like to see what some of the other players in that sort of 3,000, 4,000 sort of segment, to see what they start thinking, you know? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of players there that have the big money backing to make an in-house movement at that price point.
For Tag Heuer, it could be also difficult, no? Because the Aqua Racer is direct competitor before, and now they actually up the game a little bit. And for the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, they ask even more prices. I think it's 2,350 right now.
Yeah. But Tag Heuer has been moving in the direction of in-house, at least with their chronographs. So hopefully some sort of derivative of the O2 or a new movement from scratch could be interesting. But in any case, we're here to talk about the Speedy. So as we had discussed before, you know, the reason why I wanted to get you on is because you've had a Speedy for a very long time. You've had a Speedy for longer than I've been into watches. So, so I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on, you know, just what it's like owning it and what makes it special.
It's 7 years right now, and I think the special, it's sort of a love and hate relationship I do have with the Speedmaster, because on the one hand, it's a beautiful watch. It's like new old stock. You can purchase it new. I do have the Sapphire sandwich, of course. If you would like to have a real vintage feeling, you can get the Hazellite one. And this really feels like a chronograph from the 50s, from the 60s, but you can purchase it brand new. You have the history behind of that, and it's like never out of time. It never feels old-fashioned. And I think this is what a lot of people do like, and they didn't change a lot over all these years. Yes, the movement is different, and the purists are going to argue, well, it's not a calm wheel chronograph inside anymore, like the 321, so it's not the real Moonwatch. But still, in terms of the design, it's like the Rolex Submariner 14060M. I think if Rolex would have continued that one until today, it would be the same measure. And this is what is special about the Speedy, because in terms of the design of the case, of the dial, it's like literally one-on-one similar to the very first one they presented when they got the NASA certification. And this is the charm about that. And it's more or less affordable and available, which is a big deal if you talk other watch brands, talking Rolex, Submariner, and so on, which is as well a classic. But the Speedy you can get if you really want it, and you don't have to wait like years for it so far. So this is, I think, the main charm, or which likes a lot of guys the most about the Speedmaster, or which I do like quite a lot about the Speedmaster.
Definitely one of the good things is the fact that if you think about it, this is a watch, or a design, better said, that came out in the late 60s, and to this day they've barely changed it. I mean, they even got the size right, you know, it's been 42 millimeters for what, 50 years. It's crazy the way it's managed to sort of defy time. And also, I don't know, I'm always of two minds, because in watches I love the idea of new technology and innovation and especially new movements. But at the same time, I like the idea that it's like you can have that piece of history. There's not many other industries where you can have something that's so true to something that was done 50 years ago. You look in cars, you can't get a 300 SL that has the same engine from the 50s or anything like that. You know, you can't do that sort of thing. So that, I think, is a big appeal for it. But I know that a couple of times you've sort of toyed with the idea of selling it and then sort of come back. What keeps you coming back to it at the end of the day? Because I remember, I think one of our first interactions, you were thinking of selling it to fund, I think, was the Spirit of Big Bang. I think that's when we started commenting back and forth. And then you put out this video, it's like, can't do it.
Yeah, the Big Bang was actually a pretty, it threw me out of balance, I have to admit, because in the metal it's really a beautiful watch. But still, when you think about the Speedmaster and hold it in your hand, on the one hand it's like a little bit boring because it's a very straight design. It's a very tooly design. But this is also why I got back to it every time. It's a strap queen. The size is just perfect, 42 millimeters on my wrist. I've got 18.5 centimeter wrist size. So it just feels great. And you can dress it up, you can dress it down. And I don't know, it does age really beautiful because I use it since 7 years and I rock my watches. I don't baby them, and it has got some dents and scratches, and it even looks better. And then I think, okay, the aluminum bezel, let it fade a little bit, let it age together with me, let the lume fade a little bit. And this is a perfect watch. It will never look strange or ugly. It looks even better over the years, the longer you wear it and use it. And this is why when I made the video, I was so convinced to sell it, because I really wanted the Spirit of Big Bang. And then thought, let's just wear it a little bit again. And I threw it on my wrist. It was like, well, I can't. But this is, I think, also a lot of purpose-developed watches to have the same thing. I like to compare this also, for example, with pilot watches, with dive watches, talking about the Seamaster or the Submariner, or about the Speedmaster itself. They are very well designed in terms of legibility. They were designed for a very special purpose. And this is more like form follows function, not design. And this is why I think these sort of watches are so successful and still sell very well today, because they are timeless, because they are built for a purpose. I don't know whether this makes any sense, but I think this is why they still so much liked by a lot of collectors. Yeah, and I think the Seamaster is a great example as well from your side, because it is the same way.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe what it is that because they're doing, or at least they started with sort of form follows function, they don't fall necessarily into the traps of trends and fashions, you know? Right. If you start with just pure design, it might look great now, but in 5-10 years, it looks dated. So I think maybe that could well contribute. Like, it means maybe they don't push the envelope as much with the designs, but at the same time, it means it always looks good. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask, and there's so many different ones out there. Obviously, there's like the classic Moonwatch, but then you look at the 5 million special editions of it. Then there was a little bit where I was obsessed with the Speedmaster 57 until I found out it was like a tower on the wrist. Having owned the Speedy for a while, Moonwatch for a while, are you ever tempted like when the special editions come out, or is it always like, no, I've got the right one?
No, it's more like it's a professional. I just want to have the professional.
Yeah.
And I do like the special edition, but then I saw the dark side of the moon. The gray side of the moon kept me a little bit excited again, but it's just ceramic case. It's not so useful for me because it can shred into pieces if you drop it. And I don't baby my watches, so it's like, nah, better not. And I don't know, the Speedy Professional, you can just get this one. If you have this, you don't need another Speedmaster from my point of view. I've got a good friend of mine. He's actually into collecting Speedmasters. He has a professional. He has also the Broad Arrow GMT. He's looking now for going for the gray side of the moon. So yes, you can build up a collection with different Speedies, and every Speedmaster is going to look a little bit different. But the case design, the chamfers, and so on, it doesn't matter which Speedmaster you have, it's the same. And for me, it's still a little bit boring, so to say. So if you have one Speedmaster, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to have another Speedmaster in the collection. So for me, I like and appreciate the new models. So the new Snoopy got me really excited because I like what they did there. But still, when I look at my Speedy, I say, well, it's a classic one. It's okay. It's not like I have to purchase now again another limited edition.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What do you think of the of what they did with the case back on the Snoopy? Like, do you think it's cool, or is it kind of a little gimmicky? Because sometimes I feel like Omega just tries a bit too hard with their special editions. Then other times you got like the Apollo 8, which is just insane.
Apollo 8 is gorgeous. Well, the current Snoopy, I think it's a nice idea because it's something new. The complication is actually pretty easy. Just that idea to do that, and they really did it nice. If you see the details of the moon and the details of the Earth, how they made it, this looks really awesome, and I actually do like this. So for me, it's amazing they did do that. They came up with that idea because for that sort of watch, it's really something special. I liked it a lot.
I thought it was cool more than anything because it's like, all right, this is the third Snoopy they're gonna do. They need to do something to make it stand out. And I remember when I first saw the pictures, I looked at it, it's like, all right, it's nice, but it's like, it's just another Snoopy. And then I saw a video and saw like how it actually works. I was like, all right, that's kind of cool, you know? And especially because I'm always thinking, you know, it'd be great to see open case back, open case back. This is a good excuse not to have an open case back because it's, you know, it's a treat, it's an event. And I do agree, like the detailing on the moon and all that is really nice. Like Omega does a lot of I think very underrated detailing. The same thing with on the Aquaterra World Timer, the way that they've done like the continents and all that, and that's all done with laser. It looks amazing. Or even on the moon phase Speedy, even like the moon phase itself, it's like the level of detail, even though they do it fully industrialized, I'm sure, but they go to that level to make it look that good. And something not very many people notice, you know?
Did you see that they put on the moon a small footprint of an astronaut? Yeah. This was like, wow, no way. This is really awesome as well.
But that does bring us on to, though, the future, because obviously this has the 3861 movement, and that's now the third one by my count to have it, because they had it in the gold one last year and in the steel 50th anniversary last year. Now in this, what do you think is going to happen for the future? Like, I remember we talked about it on the comments. I think I was surprised that already we have another steel version with this movement in it. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see a new Moonwatch soon with it, or we're going to wait a little while?
Theoretically, they have to do it because it's so expensive to develop a new movement. And normally, you do get your benefit out of it over sales. And I'm pretty sure if they're going to introduce a new normal Speedmaster Professional, it would totally make sense. This is the Speedmaster right now is the only one which doesn't support a master correctional movement with Meta certified, and the 3861 is. So it's like at the moment they keep it for the special edition, but I think I was predicting it already for last year when they came the first time out with this movement. I was very sure that they're going to make the switch this year with introduction of the Snoopy. And I still think it could be, but I would say latest next year, it would make sense for them to release a new Speedmaster to just utilize the regular 3861 a little bit more. Yeah. But the question is then, what else they're going to change? I think the Oris Aquis we talked in the beginning is a good example, because it's a new Aquis, but as you mentioned, design-wise it's the same, and they will never change the current Speedmaster Professional. Crazy, because it's such a good selling model and such a loved model. So they should not change a lot, but it would be time to have an update, because it's produced that way that it is right now for a pretty long time. And when they introduce a new movement, of course, they have to upgrade a little bit. What do you think?
I agree. I don't think they're going to change it very much. Where I think there might be room for change is, I think, on the water resistance, because it's still 50 meters. I think maybe they'll bump it up to 100. I think they've been able to forever. They just haven't bothered. I mean, they have plenty of other ones in the same case that have 100. They just never bother on the main Moonwatch. So I think maybe little detail like that, small improvement, like what they did on the Octofinissimo at the beginning of this year. They just bumped it from 30 to 100 just because, you know? So I think maybe a little detail like that. And then I think, obviously, with the new movement, and then maybe a ceramic bezel. I'm of two minds whether they'll bother doing ceramic bezel or not. Because on the one hand, the tradition is the aluminum bezel. It's harks back to the original, but then you look at the Ed White, for example, which is leaning heavily into the nostalgia factor, but they still put a ceramic bezel on that. I think one thing they could do potentially is maybe if they do go all out on modernizing the new one, keep the same design, but obviously change those little details that purists are really enthusiastic about, the Hasselite, you know, the aluminum bezel. I think maybe then they could open the door for them to have another variation, which is aluminum bezel, Hasselite, and maybe even sneak the 321 in there just to make people wait once the Ed White is done. And let's face it, you know, Omega, they're not beyond making 500 different permutations of the same watch. Like, you don't really have to compromise very much when you look at their collection, because it's like, if you want XYZ size, they have it. You want, I don't know, different colors, different materials. I do like that they experiment, that they work with stuff like full ceramic cases, the titanium watches as well. Like, I think in that sense, Omega is really good because they don't just sit with just the tried and true, you know, steel, gold, two-tone. I do know you like two-tone.
I love two-tone. I don't know, I like just gold. So for me, it would be awesome to see like a two-tone Speedmaster. I was a big fan of the Speedmaster Professional in yellow gold, actually. And they've got it in their... When I was purchasing or looking for a Speedmaster, it was still in their catalog available. They deleted it, and it's going up in price like crazy because it's now like a very rare one.
I was looking, and apparently in the 70s, sorry, not the 70s, in the late 80s, they did two editions which were actually two-tone. One which was, I think, for Italy only, and it was just the bezel ring and the buttons were gold, and then they did another one with a champagne dial and proper two-tone on the bracelet.
The champagne dial was gorgeous.
And then I looked on Chrono 24, I couldn't find them.
I like that they start to reintroduce a little bit the two-tone vibe. Also for the Seamaster, the current Seamaster, you can get also in two-tone.
I really, really like it because that's one thing, like, I actually quite like two-tone as well, and I also like the idea of subtle two-tone. There were also a couple Speedies, more recent ones. I want to say it was one of the Apollo 8s, not obviously the recent black one, but it was an older one. They've definitely played around with it, and I like how, again, that's, I guess, one of the good things is they do give you options. And the Sedna Gold with the Sedna Gold little middle links on the current Seamaster, those are pretty cool. It does make me wish I would have had the option for mine. Like, I would love to get like just like a rose gold, a Sedna Gold bezel just for this. Keep everything else steel though, just as that little touch.
Maybe you can mod it.
I still need to figure out how to mod my Steinhardt without breaking it. I tried taking off the bezel, I just ended up with a lot of unnecessary scratches.
Well, true. Yeah, but back to your thought about how the Speedmaster is going to look like. With a ceramic bezel, I do agree. What I wasn't sure about is, because I think they still, if they change to a 3861, they're definitely going to bring a ceramic bezel, but I still think they keep the Hasselite version and the Sapphire Sandwich version and just put the ceramic bezel on top of it and don't change anything else. because it's like, hey, it's separated from the old one. It's a new movement, ceramic bezel, but still for the purist, the Hazellite version.
Yeah.
Maybe with a sapphire clear case back or with a steel case back could be also. But I think they just would like to show off the 3861. So I think they, from my point of view, I just think they do the ceramic bezel and keep a sapphire sandwich and the Hazellite, and that's it. For them, this would be actually the safest way to go.
Do you think they're still going to keep it, producing it in decently large numbers? Or do you think they're also going to try and make a play to make it a bit more exclusive? Like, I know they'll probably raise the price. I mean, obviously with a new movement, it makes sense. But do you think that they'll maybe reduce production a bit or still keep that as sort of their big volume seller?
From the business point of view, it would make sense to limit a little bit the production. But I think they first of all would like to get the money back in for the development cost.
Yeah, and get the economy of scale.
If they bring it really to the regular Speedmaster Professional, they're going to they just would like to sell it, and I think they should offer it in the regular quantity. And considering again the Snoopy, it would make sense to have this extra thing on the Snoopy so that people still want to pay the, what was it, 10,000 euros for the Snoopy, even it's the same movement like the regular Speedmaster. To keep it interesting enough that they don't say, hey, okay, I don't need the Snoopy because I get the same movement in the regular Professional and it's available. So I think they will produce a bigger quantity of the normal and could continue selling bigger quantities or preparing bigger quantities of the regular version then.
Yeah, and probably if they do that, then they'll just keep making special editions, and I'm sure they'll keep having versions like, I'm sure there'll be successors to the Ed White that'll use the 3-2-1 movement. So they can sort of keep that as maybe their sort of more exclusive one. But yeah, man, but thank you, man. I really appreciate, taking the time. I know it's probably sometimes a bit of a pain coordinating between work and the time difference, but it's been good, being able to sort of pick your brains and sort of also finally having a conversation with you. It's one of the crazy things when you follow YouTubers. It's like you have the conversations in the comments, you see the videos all the time, and then it's a whole other thing when you finally actually have a real conversation, and actually being able to ramble about watches for a long time.
It was pretty fun.
So that's a little bit of an introduction from someone who's actually owned the Speedmaster for an extended period of time, been collecting for a long time, so they've been able to compare it to other watches as well. And for me, at least, this was a great experience, learning a little bit more about what makes this watch so special and so iconic and respected within the community. I'd like to give another big thanks to Mr. B for participating in this conversation. And this was actually part of a longer 3-hour conversation we had. Originally, we had planned just to talk about this, but you know how it goes when you talk about watches. It tends to go on a little bit. You get onto other topics. So I will be releasing more videos from this conversation I had with him over the next few weeks and months. So if you want to find out when those next videos are coming up, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well. And follow me on Instagram as well to see more pictures and infographics as watches, as well as announcements for when new videos are coming up. And of course, do the same for Mr. B. He makes great content, and you'll find all the links to his social media and YouTube channel in the description below. In any case, thanks to everyone for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.